Wicked cool. Feature alert.
Hey there, podcast fans. Thanks for listening. Now, you can also reach out and send me a text message. On every episode, at the top of the show notes, you'll see a link that says, send us a text message. Simply click it, write something super nice and sweet, and away we go. Also remember to please subscribe, share this podcast with a friend by telling them about it, and leave us a positive review, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, your favorite podcast streaming service, or even on our website at www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com. Top of the morning to you, or if you're in a Irish pub, a tip of your pipe. All right, folks, I'm going to stop my bad Irish impersonation right there, but let you know that we have a great show tonight, a show with old friend Rob Gutro, the pet psychic. He's also a paranormal investigator and best-selling author on Amazon. We're here to talk about his latest book, The Ghosts of Ireland. And guess what? We have a couple EVPs that cropped up during this interview. So lift up your kilt, grab a pint, and settle in.
Irish bagpipe sound effect from Pixabay. That's Pixabay. Pixabay.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
I am excited about tonight's podcast, loyal listeners. We are here with a loyal friend and one of our most popular guests, psychic medium and author Rob Gutro. Rob joins us to talk about his latest book about the ghosts of Ireland. It's called Ghosts of Ireland on a Medium's Vacation, and it delves into haunted hotspots like Blarney Castle, Dromelin Castle, which is a B&B that Rob stayed at, the Rock of Cashel, and the Cork City Jail, among others. Now, this book is already kind of a hit on the internet. It is number one in two categories on Amazon, Irish travels and haunted and unexplained travels. So, Rob, these medium vacations, this is your third in the series, right?
That's right, Bob. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, these dead people like to talk to me everywhere I vacation.
I actually got to meet you in person. It was great. It was at Plymouth, probably about, oh my God, it was like I was in October, I think. We met at a Paracon in Plymouth, Massachusetts. You were on a panel. You were selling your books. I bought a couple, one from my friend Dan, who you did a reading for. And I got to tell you, there's a couple other people that have mentioned that they've had readings by you as well. I know you do so many, but I've been sending people to you, I guess, through this podcast. They don't tell me until after the fact, but you always seem to do great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's a part-time thing, doing pet readings. I don't do people still, but I do pets.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent at it. It's funny. You're very big into animal rescues, and one of my loyal listeners, a friend of mine, her name is Lisa Marie, she's this kind of a kindred spirit on that. And I'm just giving her a shout out here because she, in her spare time, she can't have dogs right now. She usually has at least two. She goes to animal rescues. She helps deliver dogs to people. She walks dogs to get them exercise. Because as you know, right now, we are in a situation where there's too many dogs. There's too many pets for the need. That was the opposite during COVID. And you know what? I know we were going to mention this at the end, but let's just do it now because that's an important thing near and dear to your heart. And we mentioned the pet psychic. Animal rescue. You want to talk a little bit about what you're doing on that, and then we'll dive into your book?
Sure. That'd be great. So as we discussed before, one of my series is Pets in the Afterlife, where I teach people how pets communicate from the other side. And what I do is I go to animal rescues to give a lecture and to teach people how pets communicate on the other side based on my 4 books. And I do that as a fundraiser. So the animal rescues will charge a small fee to hear me, and then I don't ask them for anything. So all the money goes to the rescue to support the dogs and cats and other critters that they have there. And then I do a book signing at the end for anybody who wants one.
Well, that sounds great. And you have a couple that you're working on. Is there a website that you want to promote for animal rescue, or we could circle back at the end for that if you want?
So all the animal rescues I'm going to are actually on my website, robgutro.com/events. And people all over New England in the next 6 months will have the opportunity to support a rescue and to meet me at the same time.
That's a great cause, and I know it's near and dear to your heart. So thank you for that. Let's get into your book, Ireland. You chose to go to Ireland. Let's talk about your adventure there. I mean, if you're going to give it a quick summary, how long were you there for, and how did you plan it out? I mean, how did you know where you wanted to go to in Ireland to go visit these haunted locations?
So I took the easy way out.
Haunted tours or something, or yeah?
Well, I told my husband Tom that whatever he decides is fine by me. So he worked with a travel agent across the pond vacations, and they planned out where to go. So we wound up going all the way around Ireland from the West Coast to the East Coast and back.
For those of us who probably are pretty bad at geography, how big is Ireland? How long does it take to go from the West Coast to East Coast?
It took several hours. I think we took the train going from the west to the east. And it's a really beautiful way to see the country. I would highly recommend it, going from Dublin all the way out to Galway, which is in the west.
Wow.
So, and then we drove back to Dublin. It was a great vacation. Great way to see it, by rail one way and then by car the other way.
That's fantastic. When you did the book, I've heard you on other podcasts, you always do something kind of cool with your books. It's not just about the hauntings. You include the history, and you always have some cool resources as well. So do you mind talking about this book, what you did for it, for each of the locations you went to, and how you had resources at the back of the book?
Sure. This book I really thought about as I was writing structurally, because people have told me that they use the other books, Ghosts of England and Ghosts of the Birdcage Theater, as a tour guide. So what I did was, when I went to Ireland, I made little 30 to 60 second videos in every place where I sensed either a residual haunt or an intelligent haunt, a ghost. I put those links up on YouTube, and then I link to them in each chapter. So people who are reading the Kindle book can just click on the link, and it will take you to a 30, 60 second video. You'll be able to see the location where I'm talking about and hear about my experience right there. And there's a whole list at the end of the book.
And did you include your typical, a lot of times you do drawings of things that you experienced, as well as take a lot of pictures? I assume it has a lot of that in the book as well, correct?
Yes, I did sketch out some of the ghosts that I met. So there are some of my sketches in there.
Your cover is interesting. You're a psychic medium. Usually it's in your head, a lot of this stuff, but you actually have on the cover of your book a ghost that you captured. Can you talk about where that was and how did you capture it? Did you see it in real time, or was it after you took the picture that you said, oh, wait a minute, looking back, that's a ghost?
Yeah, so that is in Cork. That is in Cork City Jail. It was a jail in the 1800s and the 1900s, and now it is a museum. And when we went in there, gosh, there were a lot of ghosts that I encountered in there. There were 8 altogether. So it was a very active place. Yeah.
Rob, it sounds like Tombstone a little bit. You had a lot of ghosts there too. Wow.
Yeah, I think there were 11 in that Birdcage Theater. There were 8 in this jail.
Wow.
The jail has a couple of levels, and of course they block off some of the corridors, and they block them off with either metal bars or windows. And I was walking past one of the corridors, and I got a headache, which indicates to me that there is a ghost around me or a spirit. And so I turned and looked down this darkened corridor, and I just took 3 pictures in a row. And I knew that there was a ghost down there, but I couldn't see him until I looked at my pictures. And in the book, you will see the 3 pictures in a row, and you can see that there's nobody in the first 2, and then the ghost appears in the 3rd picture. And that's what I made my cover.
A lot of times you communicate, obviously, to these spirits. Did you communicate to that spirit, or did it just let itself be seen?
He just let himself be seen. He did not want to communicate. But some of the other ones, though, gosh, there were some brutal communications, and I mean physically brutal communications.
Yeah.
Similar to
So I just want to I'm going to let the listeners know quick, Rob, that you, when you enter places, you not only sense spirits, a lot of times they communicate with you with how they passed. And so if it's a hanging or a fire, it's a pretty unpleasant experience for you. So was that the case here?
Yes, that was absolutely the case. There was one that when we first walked in, we went up the stairs in the west wing of this place, and this place is absolutely huge, and it's part of the prison called the Drum Gallery. And I immediately sensed this guy, and I felt pain rip through my left shoulder. I felt like I was being hit hard from behind, and I heard this guy in my head conveying a story. He told me he was a prisoner there. He was beaten by a guard. And the beating had apparently split the back of his head, and he was left bleeding. And I could feel the ooze of warmth behind my head.
Ugh.
Yeah, that was just crazy. So I was a little lightheaded, and I asked him his name. He told me his name, and he told me why he was there.
I have to ask, because this has happened to you numerous times, numerous places. What is it with ghosts or I guess not spirits, but more like ghosts? Is it like their opening line at a bar? Oh, how did you die? Well, I died this. Is that the way they open conversations? Because that seems there's got to be a better way to segue.
Yeah, good question, Bob. I wish they would come forth with something else, but I think it's the quickest way to get my attention, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Anytime they can share physical pain, you're going to stop and you're going to notice. And that gives them the opportunity to quickly share more information.
You're also a pet psychic. Pets don't do that, right?
Well, you would be surprised.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and the reason they do that is to help give confirmation to their pet parent that I am actually communicating with the right pet.
Okay.
In some cases, in some of the Pets in the Afterlife books, I wound up solving the mysterious deaths of 4 Westies that this one particular woman named Ginny had. And she was able to confirm that all of those 4 deaths, that they were all different, made sense.
That was Ghost in the Afterlife 3, Rob? Was it in that book, or was it one of the earlier ones?
I think it was Pets in the Afterlife 2.
Ghost in the Afterlife, yeah. Pets in the yeah. Okay, great. So, yes, in this jail, I think I've heard you say it was your most haunted and kind of most interesting place in Ireland. Is that true?
Yeah, it was. This was the place that definitely had more ghosts than any other place. What's interesting, too, Bob, is that in the back, there are outbuildings, and they're in ruins for the most part. In my experience, ghosts really don't inhabit buildings that are in ruins because think of them as humans, as living people. They would go to a place that offers them shelter. Mm. But in one particular case, we were at an outbuilding that I guess was a hospital. And I specifically heard a male voice audibly for the first time yell McGee or Mackie from inside the building. But of course, there was nobody there.
What is that? Is that a name? Is that like an Irish name that the person yelled, or what was that?
Yeah, apparently it is.
Wow.
McGee.
Now, is this a place it's well known for being haunted, and have other ghost investigators gone there, like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters?
I actually don't know if people have been there, but I would assume because it is really extremely haunted. So I'm sure the word got around in the paranormal community. But
yeah, and did you know as soon as you walked in, or?
Oh gosh, as soon as I walked through the front door. So as soon as I walked through the front door, I knew that we had just parked and there was absolutely nobody behind us. It was a very quiet day for tourists. But I heard a lot of men shouting outside. And I walked back outside and I looked and there was nobody in the parking lot, no living people in the parking lot. And what I did was I asked somebody that worked there, I said, what used to happen in the front when this was a jail? And they told me that some of the prisoners were hung outside the front entrance. So those voices were really residual imprints of the emotions that were generated by those other prisoners or the guards during those hangings.
Yeah, that brings up a question I had. So in the United States, you often hear the land is more haunted. Like when I go to the Conjuring house, where you're like, oh, there was an Indian massacre here, or there's Indians, and there's a curse on the land. Or it could even be based on historic battles like Gettysburg, right?
Sure.
Is it similar in Ireland? Is the land more haunted than the places you go to? Or any thoughts on that?
I think the land can absorb residual emotional energy. And that residual emotional energy can affect the living. Just like when you walk into a building and you feel uneasy in the building, you don't know why, you're actually feeling the emotions that people had imprinted on the building. And your emotional energy is making it come to life. As a matter of fact, I just did a paranormal investigation today, coincidentally, where that was just the case. The land had some really heavy, bad emotional energy.
Is this the library in Maine that we're going to talk about later?
Yes.
That you had?
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Cool. All right. So that's a teaser, audience. We're going to talk about this later on. Rob has moved to Maine. Was it Maryland that you were at before, Rob, for a long time?
I was, yes.
Okay, yeah. So Rob moved to Maine, which is really actually kind of cryptid country, but we're going to talk about that in the latter part of this this episode. So your husband Tom was with you, and we'll talk about some other haunted places. Did he pick up anything in Cork City Jail, or was there another place where he really had a unique experience?
So yeah, he is. So he's somewhat sensitive. He's not to the degree I am. Fortunately for him, because they don't share pain of death with him. But
yeah, geez,
he was able to sense different ghosts walking around. It wasn't until we got to another place that he had a past life experience.
Wow.
Come to be. So
yeah, let's segue to that if you're comfortable with it.
Sure.
Okay.
When you and I talked about my experience in Tombstone, I had a past life experience in Tombstone, and Tom had a past life experience here. So that said, here's something for your audience to think about. If you are drawn to a place that you want to visit, you may have lived there in a past life, because how odd is it that I was drawn to Tombstone and I had a past life experience. Tom was drawn to Ireland and he had a past life experience.
Yeah. It's funny. My co-host Kyle, who's like filming a Netflix series right now, feels that way about Salem, as you probably have heard on other shows. So, yeah, please tell us about, Tom's past life experience.
Sure. So he's always had a fascination with the Tudor period in England, the 1500s and so forth.
Yep.
And we explained that when we talked about the ghosts of England that I met. But we went to the Dingle Peninsula in Ireland. The Dingle Peninsula is located in County Kerry. On that area, there was a place called the Great Blasket Island that people used to inhabit by the 13th century. It was a huge island. By 1953, that island became abandoned. So there were people there for centuries. So from the 13th century to the 1953. So here's what's interesting. When he had a feeling that he was drawn to England and he wanted to know the connection, he had a past life regression done. And in his past life regression, he clearly described a small house, like a small white house, like a stone house with a thatched roof.
Okay, so there are a few places I heard when I was first editing this where there was an EVP, I thought. Here is the first one. If you listen carefully, it says, okay.
Okay. And he described the interior. When we went into the museum on the Dingle Peninsula, there was a recreation of a house from the early to mid 1500s. And that house was exactly as he described. in his past life regression.
Did he have a sense of like, oh my God, did he like elbow you and say, that's it? Or was this after he had the past life regression, Rob, or before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was about 2 years after.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
So we were in this Blasket Center Museum, and it was really a reconstructed typical Irish home in the Middle Ages. And it had a white outside colored wall and a thatched roof. And as we were walking through the museum, he saw the structure and he let out a loud gasp.
Wow.
He started shaking his head, and I asked him, I said, "What's going on?" and then he told me, "This is exactly the house, the kind of house I used to live in." And then we stepped inside because it was a total recreation of house, and he said, "This is exactly what I saw and what I described."
Wouldn't that be cool if you stepped in and you did a time slip back to then? Wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, I know it'd be kind of scary, but that would be like a great Twilight Zone episode. You know, you step into this house in a museum and then you're a time slip and you experience it. That's And EVP number 2, here is whatever it is agreeing with me about the time slip idea, going, yeah. Listen and see what you think. Yeah, that's incredible. There are so many other places. I don't want to give up a lot of the book, but if you don't mind just touching on a couple.
Sure.
I've heard you mention Dromelin Castle, which is now a bed and breakfast. So that was a unique kind of surprising place where you had some interesting experiences.
Yeah, gosh. So Dromelin Castle, it's in County Clare. And by the way, one of the things that I did when I was structuring this book, Bob, in addition to doing the videos, is I put them in alphabetical order by the county in which they are located. So that makes it much easier for people who are seeing Ireland. So Dromelin Castle, it's a former castle. It's from the 5th century, and it's been updated and it's been refurbished, and it's beautiful now. It's an elaborate bed and breakfast. It's located in southwestern Ireland. The castle it's really beautiful. It's used for banquet halls and weddings. There's a restaurant, a cocktail bar. There's everything. There's horseback riding. There's a walking trail, fishing. They offer everything. And our travel agent wanted us to stay at one of these beautiful places. So we said, okay. So the building finished in 1835, but there used to be a building there in the 15th or early 16th century. That's the first constructed building. And there was a tower that stood from that time. Well, that was where our room was.
Of course.
I will say that I was fortunate this time, unlike in England, that the ghost did not inhabit the room in which I stayed. So that was a relief. Now, Dromelin, when I got home, I looked up Dromelin Castle to see if it was haunted, and I couldn't find anything. But I was able to figure out who the ghost is. What happened was we were going to dinner, which is served in the lower level, and I thought I saw a woman walking down the hallway. And of course, when you see somebody walking down the hallway, your first instinct is to turn and to look.
Yeah.
Well, I did. Well, she was there, but she was dressed up in like 1800s dress. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So they have their employees dressed up in 1800s garb. And when she walked through a closed door into a room, then I knew that she not an employee.
Oh, boy.
So, yeah. Sometimes it's hard for me to discern whether or not they're actual ghosts or if they're living people. I stopped right there and I made a quick sketch and I made a quick video. And that link is also in the chapter. But while I was standing there, I knew she had gone in the other room, but I could still communicate with her because she was still close enough in proximity. And she told me she lived there in the 1800s and loved the castle. And that was her heaven on earth, which is why she decided to stay.
Wow.
She didn't give me a name. So I had to delve into research and
2 very quick EVPs here. There's a short one, then Rob talks briefly, and then there's another one. I don't know what they're saying, but it definitely not Rob. It's on his track, and it sounds like it's saying something. So maybe Maybe you guys can figure it out and let me know.
And I found out that there was a.
And this EVP just won't shut up. I don't think I'm going to do too many more of these, but here's another one in the background. Not quite sure what it's saying. Maybe you can figure it out.
There was a woman named Charlotte Smith O'Brien who was married to Sir Edward O'Brien, who was the fourth baronet who lived in the castle. She loved it so much that she just wanted to stay.
Are these ghosts, which a quick definition, earthbound spirits that for whatever reason have not crossed over, or spirits who have the ability to come back and forth, or is it a mixture of both that you ran across?
I only ran across earthbound ghosts.
Interesting. Okay, so either Rob's dashhounds can talk, or his stomach is growling because he didn't have lunch, or it's Tom in the background. I don't think it's any of that, but I still don't know what some of these things are saying, but I share it because typical EVP, where it almost sounds like it's coming from a wall, through a wall, kind of a light sound you can hear. So it's not super sharp, but it's definitely there, and it's on Rob's track only, and it's not like a breathing sound or anything. So take a look, and I think this will be the last one I share unless something else comes up that is really easily for me to hear. All right, here it is.
Ghosts. 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 But I did get a nice sign from one of my dogs in spirit.
Really? Interesting.
You want me to tell that story?
Absolutely, yeah.
As I mentioned before, when people cross over in spirit, they can go anywhere, anytime, any place. And they can go on vacation with you. They can go to work with you. It doesn't matter where they are. Before I tell you this story, I will tell you that when we were in Germany, I sensed my mother and father on our vacation with us. I kept telling Tom, I said, my mother is here. She wants to see Germany for some reason. She'd never been to Germany. He said, okay, look for a sign from her. And I said, okay. So we were on one of those Viking river cruises, and we get off and we get on a bus, and we're driving to the city. And sure enough, Bob, there's a huge sign. It had to be probably 12 feet wide by about 8 feet high. And all it said was my mother's name, Norma.
Oh my God.
It's a big red sign. And I looked at Tom and I said, why would an Italian woman's name be the name of a supermarket in Germany?
Yeah. Wow.
But
it's so funny. Look for a sign, and it's so weird. It's so literal. It's crazy.
It was absolutely, yeah. So sometimes signs can be literal, but so look for that. If you're on vacation and you send somebody's with you, they may give you a sign, not actually a literal sign, but
Yeah, I have to get better at that, Rob. Your pet, which dog was it that left you a message?
So this was Sprite. Sprite was a dachshund who lived to be 16 and a half.
Okay.
You probably remember Sprite because Sprite sent me that yellow and black butterfly sign all the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were in Dingle, Ireland. This was right after we left the museum. And Dingle's a very small town, but it's very old. And it's apparently known for, it has a harbor where it's apparently known for a dolphin that comes and visits. So they make a big deal out of it. So we're walking the store, the storefronts, and there was a jewelry store. It said jewelry on it, and it said dolphin jewelry. And I'm not a guy that's into jewelry, but I said, okay, well, I looked at him and I said, do you want to go in there? And it's like, yeah, well, we're here. We might as well just go in there. So I said, yeah, I think we should. So we went in there. And just before we went in there, I had been talking about Sprite. I don't know why until I got in there. As soon as we get in there, the dolphin store, there was a small ceramic yellow and black butterfly right in front of the front door.
Wow.
And it would not have been a sign had I not been thinking of him just before, though. So that's important for the listeners. If you're thinking of somebody and you find a coin with their date of passing or their date of birth, then that's a clue that they are with you. Spirits will leave signs of things that they can move, things that don't weigh a lot, like a feather, for instance. So Sprite made me talk about him. Here I am in Ireland, and it was years after Sprite had passed, and it wasn't even the month he passed. But I was talking about him out of all the dogs that we had, and so that's how I knew.
Well, Sprite would be more of an Irish dog's name, if any. Like you think of someone that's kind of spunky. So I don't know. That's so interesting. It's so funny. It's great to hear that even your pets reach out to you when you're on vacation. So that's super great. The ghosts that you see overseas in England or in Ireland, are they older, like farther back in time than you find a tombstone, or in the United States typically?
They have been. So I met ghosts from, many different centuries when I was in Ireland. The 18th century, the 19th century, the 17th century, the 20th century.
Wow.
When I was in England, the ghosts that I met there went back much further.
So I got to ask, vacations, intentional or not, are they always kind of like haunted happenings for you? Or do you ever go on a vacation and it's just a quiet one and you could just relax?
Well, it was a quiet one, but it was because I had a really serious sinus infection, and it blocked out all of the signal.
Oh, all right. Oh.
Yeah, so Bob, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Hey, I can go on vacation, and if I happen to be pretty sick, then I won't have any ghosts. But
You'll be able to taste any food or breathe or anything like that either.
Yeah, some of the essentials just get left off of that vacation.
In your series, this is a great book. They all sound really good. And I can understand why this is number one in the category for Irish travels. It's great how you've evolved as you've gone along and just made them so travel-friendly by combining the history with almost that they can go with you as they go on the trade across and drive back and what the hot spots are. Is there any one or two places that you would say, whether they're famous besides the Cork City Jail or less known, that you would say, look, if you go to Ireland, you really got to check this place out?
Oh, gosh, there are quite a few of them, actually. So the Rock of Cashel was one that really stuck out to me because of what I call the smoky ghosts. But I'm going to leave that there. There was a place called Newgrange, and it's north of Dublin. And it was an ancient settlement that predates the pyramids by 400 years. Newgrange is really a tomb, and there are a couple of different tombs from prehistory that are in Ireland. And this particular one dated back to 3200 BC. Now, there are no ghosts there, but there's a lot of residual energy. And it was really, really cool to see something that predates the pyramids. So,
wow,
I would recommend that.
Not sure what this is, but it is on Rob's track, very low in the background, and definitely not Rob. So, again, I'm just capturing these. If you can figure out what they are, shoot me an email or whatever. But here's this one.
So the Rock of Cashel, does Cashel mean fortress, or is it something like a castle, or what? Or does it mean, what does that mean?
It does. It means fortress.
Okay. Wow. Lucky guess.
Yeah.
maybe the spirit's talking to me, Rob. I don't know. That's good.
I think you just know your history and you underestimate yourself.
Yeah, but I keep forgetting it. That's what happens when you get old,
Oh, you tell me.
So I want to talk about your current digs in Maine and some of your pet stuff. But is there anything when you look back at Ireland and the book that really you remember strongly?
Well, honestly, I remember all of it because I edited it like 25 times before I published it. But there was a lot of residual energy there because there were a lot of ruins. And I find that ghosts do not linger in ruins. They act just as people do. They seek shelter whenever something is in ruin. And a couple of other things that I address too is different scientific factors about why ghosts will look for shelter. And that is that weather is an energy that can erode. If you think about how rains and wind can erode a shoreline,
Yeah.
it can do the same thing with paranormal energy. So they have to go find a place to hide out, if you will.
Is that why, like during storms, it was a dark and stormy night, you hear about ghosts because there's the electricity from the thunderclaps and the lightning too on the other side of the coin?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. That those things enable and empower earthbound ghosts to show up. And that's a great segue to my last chapter, Bob, because what I decided in this chapter, because I'm a meteorologist, I included a chapter about weather and tips to visit Ireland in the different seasons and skip city driving, what licenses are good, speed limit signs, all kinds of things, rail travel. So all kinds of tips that you may find helpful too if you're planning on visiting.
Well, that's great. I mean, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention St. Patrick. I think there was a chapter where you touched on St. Patrick, right, in the book?
Yeah, he was at Monash Bois Cemetery, and that was in County Louth. There was actually a monastery there. It was built by Saint Bute, who was an Irish monk. He was a follower of St. Patrick. And there was something weird about that too. There was a weird story about about this monk too, and it has to do with the resurrection of a dead Scottish king. But I'll just leave it there. But yeah, there's actually another reference in there to St. Patrick, and I honestly can't remember which chapter it's in.
Well, they're going to have to get the book and read it, so find out. And I think you had this as an audiobook now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all my books now are audiobooks. So
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you like them in the audio? I think you used AI, right? Is that what you used for the audiobooks?
I did, but I got to choose the voices, and I picked a voice similar to my own voice.
So you didn't pick like an Irish lass for Ireland or an English, gent for English. You use more. It's the same consistent voice for all the books. Is that accurate?
No, it's me. So it sounds like me. So you know it's from me.
Well, that's good. You've got. I'd rather hear your voice, anyways. So
you're really kind.
So now you are in Maine, my friend, in a new house, which you had to wait a little bit extra longer to move into. I remember over the summer we had some messages on Facebook going back and forth. I had asked you before we got on the call if you had joined another group, because some of my favorite podcast episodes are your inspired ghost tracking. There's some great ones. The double murder ghost one was an example that comes to mind. You had a great group that you used to do some investigations with. There was a gentleman that was another psychic out there, Klein. What was his first name?
Yeah, Troy Klein. He's amazing.
Yeah, Troy Klein. Yeah. So you had a great group out there. You're in Maine. I know you're haven't settled with the group yet, but you were called into a unique situation today, right? That happened?
Yeah, today was the call back, the second one. But I will tell you that Troy and I still work together, and we can work remotely. So we've done several. Yeah, we've done several remote investigations. He'll be on site, and I'll be with him. I'll be on the phone. I'll be able to connect to his energy. So
that is so cool. Yeah.
But yes, so I've been doing a lot of lectures, and I teach night school up here in paranormal studies. One of the lectures I did was at a library, a local library, that turned out to have somebody had a paranormal experience, scared by a ghost. So I was called in, and sure enough, I encountered this guy. I determined that he was in the basement, and he was not a happy man. So there were several other factors that came into being. So I sketched him out, and then I interviewed a librarian who had the encounter. And as it turned out, she described him similarly, except she described him looking younger. But he was wearing the same thing. One thing I've learned, Bob, is that I think I finally figured out why ghosts get stuck. This was a big, important thing to me. So think of a ghost as, in the beginning, someone with a lot of energy, a lot of emotional energy, and a lot of physical energy. When we first die, that energy within us couples with memories, personality, and knowledge. And we choose to either stay earthbound as a ghost or we cross over as a spirit. That energy is like a battery. And over time, that battery drains. And when it gets below a certain threshold, they don't have enough energy to open the doorway to the other side anymore. And that's what I was able to conclude. That's why it takes like 4 or 5 people in a paranormal group to pool their emotional energies enough to open a doorway to help them cross over. And that's what had to happen today.
So who helped you? Was Troy on the call? I mean, you need other psychic people, right? Or do you just need anyone with you and you can help them, you can coach them to draw the energy? Who do you need with you to pull up the energy for that?
I had the librarian look around and she called 2 energy light workers. And they came in today.
Okay, yeah.
And Tom and I came in to just help add our energy to the event.
And our favorite interruption guy is back, EVP, Mr. EVP. I don't know what this one says either, but let's see if you guys can figure it out.
And she was able to cross this guy over. So, and it was different. It was a totally different atmosphere after the guy had crossed.
It's so funny. My daughter works at 2 libraries. My oldest daughter, who's 18, and that's not the first library haunting I'd heard of in my 100+ episodes. So yeah, you don't think of a library as a place where there could be ghosts, but they're older buildings typically, and yeah, there are spirits in some libraries. So that's so interesting that this was and this is right near where you live, right?
Yes, but here's the oddity about it, because this library was only built in 2005. This guy is from the 1800s, and he lived in a home close by. When the home collapsed, he found the next shelter he could, which was the basement of the library.
Oh, that's your ruins theory. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and here's something even more weird that I found out today. So there was one particular corridor in this library in the basement that goes down into the electrical room and where the boilers are and so forth. I saw the ghost go down that corridor, and that's what I told the head librarian. And she said, "Why would he do that?" And I said, "Well, because that's where your energy sources are. That's where he gets his energy in order to manifest." And today, when the light worker went in there, she said, "Oh, there's a chair at the end of this hallway, oddly." So she said, "I wonder what that means." And I instantly knew that that's where the ghost would sit when he was not active, just like he did when he was alive. He would find a chair and just sit. So all of these pieces came together today.
One more time, our friend Mr. EVP interjects. I wonder if it's the spirit from the library that Rob saw that day. I wonder if anyone followed him home. Be interesting to see what he thinks.
So, Rob, if I'm an earthbound ghost, you'll find me in a reclining chair somewhere close to my house in Westminster. That's probably where I'll end up. Hopefully, I can cross over, but yeah. I want to, you talk about earthbound spirits. One other thought. I've heard some people, and I'm not sure if you agree or not, but if a person is very religious, like Catholic or whatever, sometimes they don't cross over because they feel they've been bad and they don't want to go through that past life regression or whatever. Have you come across that at all? Any thoughts on that hypothesis? Why people may not want to earthbound ghosts, some ghosts may not want to cross over?
That's actually one of the things that I talk about quite a bit, is that most of the ghosts, once they get that quick life review and they're devoted to a religion, whatever religion it is, they fear the other side because the other side has been painted as
judgmental. Yeah,
judgmental and fiery. And my experience is that there is no fiery pit or anything like that.
Yeah, our mutual friend Ruthie Larkin, the Beantown Medium, is the same way. I know in my documentary she talks about just love on the other side, which is great.
Yes,
that's all good to hear. I'm so glad you're settled. How do you like Maine, by the way? How do you like New England? Welcome to New England, and how do you like us obnoxious New Englanders? Are we good neighbors?
Well, I'm a native from Massachusetts, so I love.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I love New England.
Okay,
best place in the world. So I'm trying to tell people not to move here so that we can maintain the low population.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe you'll run into Bigfoot at some time. That's like big Bigfoot country out there, that New Hampshire. So we'll go figure. Maybe that'll happen.
All right, I'll send them to you with some popcorn.
Okay.
Sit and watch
He's even out here, believe it or not, in Westminster. So there's a show called Bigfoot Expedition, and a guy in Leominster named Ronnie LeBlanc. He was on that show for like 3 or 4 years. He's written books. There's a place in Leominster called Monsterland, where apparently there's like a mini type of paranormal area that he's written about. So believe it or not, there have been Bigfoot sightings even out here in Massachusetts. So
wow.
he's everywhere.
All right.
And I'll tell you, I'm thinking about that when I take my dog out at midnight, when I go outside the porch, because there's like bears and all this stuff. I take her like right outside the back porch. We don't go very far. I keep looking around, both of us, just to make sure we don't run into anything nocturnal that's out there, because it's...
You might invest in some doggy diapers instead.
Maybe. She's only 4, but she's active. You would love this dog. You have to meet her sometime, Rob.
All right.
Let's all right, we can wrap up. Let's talk about, one last time. Let's talk about your where they can get your books. I mean, talk about your Pet and Afterlife series, and if there's any last closing thing on animal rescue, because look, this is a really important time now. Like I think I mentioned up front, during COVID, everybody wanted a pet. Now people are facing some really hard financial situations 4 years later, and they're either getting rid of pets or not taking pets in, and pets still need to be rescued. So on those two topics, sir, I'll leave the floor with you.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, Bob, what I found as an animal rescuer, what I've found is that once COVID ended, people decided they wanted to go back to work, and they didn't have time to take care of their dog, and that's why they're abandoning dogs and cats. So that's what it is.
Equally short-sighted. That's that's even worse almost. Boy.
Yeah, it's just sickening to me as a dog rescuer. But anyway, so Ghosts of Ireland is the third in my series on a medium's vacation. I have the 2 other series, Ghosts versus Spirits. Those include paranormal investigations I've done, and plus spirits of loved ones who've connected. And the other one is Pets in the Afterlife.
Last question. Are you thinking of, is there another series that you would start? You've said, I always want to do a series on this. Is there another series, ruminating in the back of your brain right now? Or is this kind of the core of your library that you think that you'll be working on?
I think this is the core. I don't have any more room in my brain right now. So,
okay.
Besides, as I may have mentioned, I'm teaching paranormal courses at night. I'm working full-time still in my career job, trying to help out animal rescues. I do lectures for animal rescues every couple of weeks, all throughout New England, even remotely. I'm doing one for Wisconsin in 2 months remotely.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm keeping very busy. And if anybody goes on my website, robgutro.com/events, you will see that I am scheduled all the way out till the 29th of October. So
yeah. What about the pet psychic readings? I mean, you were booked for about a year out. You're getting to be like Ruthie where you're booked. So are you taking any newcomers, or are you pretty much booked for a long time on that?
So I am booked a long time. I am booking in July 2025.
Wow. My God.
Yeah. And
what have we started, Rob, by promoting you on these podcasts? Your secret is out.
I know. So it's April 2024. I'm booking to July 2025. And a month fills up really quickly. Like within a week, months have filled up.
Yeah, because they're weekends and you're working during the week, right? So it's just the weekends, and you want to do other things on your weekend.
Yeah, and I do lectures and fundraising things for animal rescue. So it's quite busy. Plus, Bob, creating social media posts every single day is also time consuming. So that's another thing. But it's all good.
Yeah.
I just want people who lost loved ones, whether they're human or pet, to just read some of my books so they can understand what signs to look for. And they'll get comfort that way. They don't need a medium. They They can just learn what to look for, and they can do it themselves.
Yeah, and I have like 4 or 5 of them, and I'm not even a reader anymore. I have 4 or 5 of your books in my library behind me. So excellent, breezy, quick reads. They're helpful because you can, like they're guides. They're set up to help you. Even your Pets in the Afterlife, it's set up to help you with grieving, right? So, I mean, it's more than just ghost stories. It's stuff that can really help you connect, deal with your grief if you've lost a pet, or plan a pretty cool trip and know where to go and what to expect. So thank you, Rob Gutro, for being back on the show, being one of our favorite guests, if not our favorite guest, and just for being you, Rob. You're a really good guy. I got to meet you, like I said, last fall. You were very kind to me at a point where I had lost a job, and you'd followed up with me afterwards. Were very generous about something. So I want to thank you for your friendship. Great to meet you, and you're always welcome on my show.
You are a treasure and a light in my life, Bob. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you too.
Well, right back at you.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.